What I would say is, JJ, sometimes I feel for your humor level. I mean, I'm glad that you're able to laugh at things that I'm not, but it just seems like a very low bar.
Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name's JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-hosts, Mattson Heiner.
Better read than dead.
Javier Ortiz.
What is up, my nerds?
And Ian Anderson.
Some shit.
Do you ever find yourself wondering if you should spend the time, money, or both on a movie? We're here to answer that question for you. Each week we put a movie on trial, discuss the facts, pass judgment, and let you know our verdict. We do appreciate any help growing the podcast by hitting that follow, subscribe button. Also tell a friend about us. You can go check out our website and subscribe to our email list, and we'll send you out some exclusive content and updates as well. Today, we're going to be reviewing Bill and Ted Face the Music. It was released August 28th, 2020. It's directed by Dean Parisot, written by Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon. Stars Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, Kristen Shaw, Samara Weaving, Bridget Lundy Payne, William Sadler, Aaron Hayes, Jayma Mays, Anthony Kerrigan. It's a long list. Kid Cudi. I don't really consider that a starring role, more of a supporting role. Cameo, though hilarious. Once told they've saved the universe during a time-traveling adventure, two would-be rockers from San Dimas, California find themselves as middle-aged dads still trying to crank out a hit song and fulfill their destiny. Just a quick reminder before we jump in, our new rating scale, we will start with a spoiler-free review in which each of us will give it a rating based on a 3-tiered scale. Worth it, or you should definitely go see this in theater. Stream it. It's worth watching, but it can wait until you watch it on your couch and finally skip it. No need to watch it at all. With this one, it's a little unique because you can either see it in theaters or it was immediately available for streaming. So we'll kind of lean into that as we give this rating. But Javier, why don't you start us off with our spoiler-free review of Bill and Ted?
Okay. I had a feeling that this movie would be a stream it movie, so I streamed it, and I was right. So you should just stream it. And I say that because I think it's one of those like nostalgia movies where it's kind of fun to watch like old man Keanu Reeves pretend to be young man Keanu Reeves, and it kind of finishes the story. It's a lot like the reason why we gave Scooby-Doo like any good points was because it's like, oh, I remember this movie. That was fun. I'm going to leave it at that because I think anything past that goes into, spoiling territory. But yeah, stream it. I think it's worth watching once at least.
Mattson.
Well, if you were a fan of Bill and Ted, seeing it back in 89 to 91, maybe you were excited for this movie. Maybe you're a little skeptical, but I will recommend streaming it. As Javier mentioned, the nostalgia, but that's pretty much about it because there's no semblance of plot. The jokes don't really land that well, in my opinion, and these actors are just old people trying to play like they were 18 again. And to me, it doesn't really work. If you don't care for Bill and Ted, skip this movie entirely. Go watch something else. Go plant a garden. Go for a walk. Do something else.
Mattson, maybe the jokes fell flat for you because you're not like a 50-year-old dude with like a failed career.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe people like this movie just really resonates with them. No offense, JJ.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
It's a good thing we're not in the same room for this recording. Beating you youngins down. All right, Ian.
For me, I'm going to agree with Javier in that this nostalgia factor is very high. In fact, after I watched this, I went and watched the first one because I was like, I want to see Bill and Ted go through their whole first little excellent journey or whatever it is. So I'm going to say stream it, but don't pay to stream it. Wait till it comes out free because the $20 to stream it right now is not worth it.
Oh, that's actually a really good caveat. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Sound words.
Be careful how much money you spend on this.
Ian's a little sensitive on the money thing right now because he just bought a house, so I can totally agree with that.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what else to say past that. So JJ, defend this movie.
Yeah, he's like shaking his head. He's like about to blow an aneurysm.
I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to pop an aneurysm, but
I still liked it. But yeah, just stream it.
I had a hell of a good time watching this movie. Like I watched it late last night because I had a busy day. And I was like, in fact, I forgot I even needed to watch it, if I'm being honest. And then I was like, oh shit, I need to watch the movie. So I sit down last night late and start watching this movie, and I was laughing my ass off. I was like feeling like a kid again. Like, this shit was great. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I will say stream it, and I mean that in that even I don't know that it's necessary to see this in a theater. And I think 7-8 months ago, had this come out, I'd be saying go to the theater. The fact that it's still pretty COVID crazy, it's difficult to get seats. I don't know that it's worth messing with. It's easier to just stream it, but I definitely think it's worth the money. I think it's, especially if you're my age. Look, I realized that this came out, you guys weren't even born yet, or Mattson was a blip on the radar, just born. But I was 8 years old when the first one came out and grew up watching this movie. Like, I thought this was the original movie was hilarious. The second one was pretty but death was the funniest thing on the planet in that movie. And it made me like miss George Carlin. Like, God, that man was the funniest dude. So I was really glad for the fact that I was able to watch that and reminisce on this movie. I enjoyed this movie. I was laughing. I got some great quotes. I thought it tied both of the original two movies up in a nice bow and included the best parts of both of those movies. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I say stream it, but again, it's only because I don't know that in these times it's the right time to go see this one in a movie theater, especially when you can see it at home. But definitely stream this, and I think it's worth the $20. In fact, I'm probably gonna buy this movie because I just enjoyed it. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, I could see myself watching this and giggling my ass off at random times. So
vomited.
all right, that's our spoiler free. Sounds like a stream it unless you're Mattson and you just don't love it and you never liked it, then skip it. If you haven't seen it and you want to avoid spoilers, now's the time to walk away, go watch this movie, come back and pick up where you left off. If you don't care about spoilers, you want to hear how this thing went in deep dive, then stick with us because we're about to spoil the shit out of this thing. Yeah, this movie cracked me up. Yeah, it's such, like, for me, it was instant. Like, as soon as it starts and you see the old neighborhood, and I was like, oh shit, this is Bill and Ted. So glad to be back in this world, and you just see these two idiots still trying to figure it out. And the wedding scene, oh my God. The first thing you see these two idiots is at their Ted's little brother's wedding. And to the funny, like, one of the greatest, it was my girlfriend, he married my dad, and then he married Ted's dad, and then now he's marrying Ted's little brother. I was laughing the whole time. Shit was great. Because it's just such a Bill and Ted thing.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't know what to say to that.
right now.
I don't know what to say to that.
What I would say is, JJ, sometimes I feel for your humor level. I mean, I'm glad that you're able to laugh at things that I'm not, but it just seems like a very low bar.
That's not true. Because see, here's the funny part.
What's funny about that? It was so planted, so poorly acted. It just like stiff to me. I was like, I need more complex humor, and I guess that's a very backhanded comment, but I said it.
What would you categorize as funny? Like, tell me a movie that you think's funny.
That's a great question. What's a movie that I think Central Intelligence is really funny? I think the first new Jumanji was very funny. What's another movie I think is really funny? I mean, a movie you don't really like, Pineapple Express. That movie made me laugh.
You know what's funny, actually, is Pineapple Express is the first type of this humor, like Bill and Ted, like slapstick, dry, stupid humor, that I thought was funny. So thanks to Pineapple Express, I probably enjoyed this movie more than I would have before I watched that movie.
But I'm notoriously, like, in my family, people that know me, like Shake My Little Brother, for instance, he's what I call a classic. Like, you put them in the room, everything's instantly funnier. And JJ, if I had watched this movie with you, I would be laughing more because you would be laughing, and this movie probably would have been more enjoyable. But for me, who I guess I don't laugh as readily, it didn't land for me. But again, every movie is funnier with people like you, and that's why I love watching movies with my little brother, because it makes me laugh more. So it's problem with me and problem with you, but when we come together, life is just better. It's most excellent.
See, and it's funny because I don't like, so I laugh because, like, Bill and Ted, the original two Bill and Teds, like, spurned a lot of comedies that came about, like Step Brothers. I hear people talk about the movie Step Brothers and how fucking funny it is. I hate that movie. I think it's stupid as shit. And I think most Will Ferrell movies are really stupid.
Yeah.
I don't like Will Ferrell. The only good thing about Step Brothers is John C. Reilly is a comedic genius, but Will Ferrell's a moron. And I don't like most of the shit he's in. I don't think he's funny. And so and I hated Pineapple Express for the same reason. I found no point to that movie unless you're high. I've watched it high, and then it's kind of funny because I'm like, my dumbass high ass would do shit like that.
A part I did like in this movie, why isn't John Wick just ripped John Wick after seeing this movie? Like Prison Yard, Keanu Reeves. Shout out to John Wick 4 and 5. I need to see John Wick ripped John Wick. He's got time in the gym. I want to see that. I don't know how they did that with After Effects, whatever they use. That was cool. That part made me laugh because I was like, bro, like these dudes are just shredded right now.
But I just love how they get there. You know, they get pulled back to the future by Rufus's daughter Kelly, which I was like, yes. And then they go through and find all the new versions of themselves. Because I love the grunge versions, these sad, stupid idiots that are what fat Keanu Reeves was later on was hilarious. But like he sees these grunge assholes, Ted's an alcoholic and Bill's a dick, like a balding dickhead as they're walking out of this shitty
dude, yourself is a dick.
Yeah. I was giggling.
I need to rewind to the beginning because I haven't watched the first one in years and I never watched the second movie. So they have this little montage, I guess, where they talk about how after they figured out that they need to write the song that unites all humanity, they got like super big and then the band, they like broke up, right? Like the band broke up and then, but is the idea that Bill and Ted stayed together the whole time? Like they stayed best friends the whole time? Okay. Cool,
yeah,
cool.
They were always together. It was, and then you find out later that Death went his own way for instead of being bass, and that had some great moments as well. But yeah, so then it becomes a matter of they have until 7/17 on that very day to write the song. So they decide that their plan is to go steal it from future selves. So they hijack the old phone booth, and again, like Mattson hinted to, they go to the grunge version 2022, and then they go to 2025, which is the weird British versions, the fake British versions, and they're in Dave Grohl's house. They've broken into Dave Grohl's house and stole one of Dave Grohl's songs, trying to get their wives back, and then they know where they're at, so these idiots end up they always know what the other ones are going to do because they've done it before, so they're chasing them down, they get a gun. These idiots put buckets on their heads so they can't see anything.
That was the one part that I actually laughed at, where it switches to Ted's dad watching them fall out of a balcony with buckets on their head. I was like, that's hilarious. That's amazing.
Dude, I like the when they're holding the gun on him, and they're like, dude, you don't need to hold a gun on us. And he's like, look what happens when I don't. And they start running away, and he pulls the gun back out.
Good point, Bill. Future Bill.
I think the only part of this movie that landed really well for me is, I will admit, I did enjoy the robot. I enjoyed the crisis of AI with this robot. Dennis, I don't remember. What's his full name?
Dennis Caleb McCoy. That was the stupidest part of this movie.
I agree with that.
I think it was so stupid that it was finally the thing that like got me to crack a couple of smiles, because I was just like, what is happening right now? But it did make me chuckle. I will admit, JJ, I got a couple smiles out of me because it was so stupid. But it worked.
It did not work.
And you guys having never seen, because none of you have seen the second one, have you? Bogus Journey?
No, because
there's robots in Bogus Journey, and so it's a callback to like he's an updated version of these robots. And oh god, yeah, it was great.
The only part of that robot story that was funny is that he went to hell, and they're like,
yeah.
Why is there a robot in hell? Can robots die? That doesn't make any sense.
Is that a robot? Yep, that's a robot in hell.
Like they pass a demon, and he's like, that's not right.
Hell seems like a very friendly place.
Yeah, very hospitable.
Yeah. That's you guys. Oh, the second one's great because you spend a good chunk of time in hell.
What's funny is like I was actually during the movie looking more forward to their kids rounding up the band than I did to actual Bill and Ted's story. So whenever they cut back to the kids, like they're trying to convince Jimi Hendrix to join this band. And obviously Jimi Hendrix treats them like a couple of crazy kids. So they go farther back, get Louis Armstrong, and they basically shove a phone in his face. And he's like, what is this? convince Louis Armstrong to come back to convince Jimi Hendrix. I'm like, this is exactly the type of plan that I feel like the four of us would come up with. Like if we were put in that situation, like, oh, well, obviously we need to go. And then they just kept going farther back in time to the point where they have like a cave woman as a drummer. And I'm like, what? Why?
It sounds good in theory. That's one of my biggest problems with the movie. They just gloss over the fact that, like, how do they actually get these people in the time machine? They can't even speak the language, let alone there are these two white girls that in some of the societies that they appeared in, it would have looked hella weird that they were like, oh yeah, come with us. And they can't speak German. They can't speak Chinese. They can't speak caveman. And so I know it's a slapstick movie and I should just overlook all that. But like, there's just no plot connection to how that actually worked, but that seems to be like the Bill and Ted mantra. Just kind of make it work.
Isn't that the Bill and Ted thing where they just sort of luck themselves into things, right? Like they're just accidentally successful. Like
that's what kind of makes it funny is like in the first one, they do the same thing where they're got Socrates and he speaks no English and they're like tricking him to come with them. And then you get like Beethoven and then Freud comes with them, like all these random characters.
Well, you got Napoleon who won't stop eating Neapolitan ice cream.
I forgot about that.
I forgot about that.
He goes to the water world.
Yeah, he's going down the water slide in his freaking Long John underwear. So funny. Oh, that's their whole trip back in time is just a pure reminiscent of their dad's trip from the first one, because that's they go back time, they get their most bodacious princesses, and oh god, it was such a great callback and rewind to what the original movie was, and just grabbing people whether they spoke the language or not. And I'm telling you, Mozart was one of the funniest things in this movie because he goes chasing after the cave woman. He goes chasing after her.
And then you hear him like scream.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I thought the daughters of both Bill and Ted, to me, they felt like the true Bill and Ted in the sense of when they did like the dude or like whoa, like all that, it came off much more authentic to me than older Bill and Ted, where I just felt like it was kind of archaic. Keanu Reeves just doesn't need to talk.
I did think that actually, like Ted's daughter did a great job at like having Keanu Reeves mannerisms.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought they did great.
They did a really good job. That was one of the things I was very impressed with. And it was, they really recreated the mannerisms and the way that they spoke from the original movie very well.
I will say this though. So I feel like the band that they put together started out very strong, right? They're like Louis Armstrong, Jimi Hendrix, Mozart, and then it took like a weird turn where we went and got like a flute lady, and then we got a cave woman, and then Kid Cudi shows up, and I'm like, is this the all-star band? We could travel anywhere in time, and we settled on Kid Cudi, a cave woman, and a flute lady. Like, okay.
I was actually okay with Lin Lun, and then the cave woman made me laugh. But Kid Cudi, I was like, what the hell? And then not only that, but he's like
an expert in like quantum mechanics.
Mad scientist.
Quantum mechanics, Kid Cudi. I'm like, what the hell?
What? Where is this coming from? I'm like, is this something I don't know about? Like, is there some inside joke that Kid Cudi's like he graduated in like physics in college or something? Like,
yeah, I have no idea. That part was very odd to me, and I had a couple good chuckles, especially when the daughters are sitting there talking to him and they fully understand quantum mechanics.
Yeah, and then you switch to Bill and Ted, and Ted's like, Kid Cudi, we have like 4.5 minutes. It reminded me of the Office where he's like, explain this to me like I'm 8.
Yeah.
Okay, explain this to me like I'm 6.
Which the Office stole that from the wonderful movie Philadelphia, where the one lawyer's like, explain this to me like I'm a 2-year-old.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually. That's awesome.
Yeah. So at this point, they're traveling back. They go see jailbirds. And then I loved when the robot got his ass beat. This poor robot's having this thing of consciousness. Yeah, he's like, we gotta protect ourselves because you know what happens if he kills them, then we die, dude. And they all start having this prison yard beat down of this poor robot. And then they go to see old Bill and Ted, and the two old guys in the nursing home were pretty funny and hand them the song on like a USB. And then they walk out and they break it so that the robot will kill them because he won't kill them when they have the thing. And the robot's already killed daughters and all of the past beautiful musicians, and they're all out in hell. So then they jury rig their way into hell, and then we get to meet Death again. We're reintroduced to Death. William Sadler comes back to play Death. Loved it. When they start arguing about him leaving, and he's like, "You were playing 40-minute bass solos. Nobody else could play but you." Like this whole "you sued me" shit. Like I just showing
Did they
what
sue
happened.
him?
Yeah, that's what he
Did
was
they-
saying. He was
Did
like,
they sue him in like the second movie? Is that part of it?
No, they just
Oh.
added that in there as like
Oh, okay,
why
got
they
it.
broke up, the fact that the band broke up. He's like, "Yeah, you like were doing 40-minute bass solos. You sued me." Because I didn't know what they were talking about when the daughter's like, "You need to apologize," or "He hates us." And I was like, dude, they're like best friends. Like, what the hell? Why would he hate them? And then they're apologizing to each other and giving each other the hugs. I thought the death was just great. Loved it. Because death was the best part of the second movie. No questions asked.
That scene probably would have been funnier if I had seen the second movie.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the second movie, like it's not gonna
It had no
land.
context for me. Like it was an inside joke that I knew I was missing watching that scene.
So yeah, and then they get up and it's a matter of they realize this isn't just going to be them creating the song. They need to get everybody involved. So they get to where all this crazy shit's happening with the time-space continuum and different things people are popping up. The different versions of Jesus that kept popping up was cracking my up.
My favorite one was this little snip of him walking on water while Washington is crossing the Delaware. And I'm like, that is amazing.
Well, and then Washington's crossing the Delaware with Babe Ruth in the boat.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Jesus walking across the water in front of the boat. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
I'm glad they had fun with that. Like they established that would be happening, and then they just like they just kept like throwing it in. I'm like, that was funny. Those are good little like 2-second clips.
Oh, and I loved when like Saturn like pops up in the sky where the moon was supposed to be, and Bill's like, dudes, I think it's a lunar eclipse. And Ted's like, or it's Ted that says that, and Bill's like, dudes, that's not lunar, guys. It's Saturn sitting up there blocking the sun. So then they finally realize that it's not them that's going to write the song. It's their daughters that are going to, that's the Logan and Esquire that are going to put together the song. So they then have that moment of realizing that they haven't worked their whole lives to be the Wild Stallions, then write the song, that it was to raise the Logan and Esquire that did. And because they couldn't figure out why they were such failures and how they, it's this whole persevering through failure. And I think that's the part that we lose track of sometimes when you watch this movie, because it's silly and it's goofy and it's slapstick, but it has some pretty impressive themes about these guys have spent 25 years struggling in the music industry, trying to be famous, reinventing themselves musically over and over again, to the point that they were some weird new age instruments at the beginning at the wedding and doing like throat note instruments, and now all of a sudden they realize that it was about family and about taking care of their daughters, and then they turn that over and say, you guys have to produce this song with everyone, and then they get the infinite Bill and Ted dispersing musical instruments to the world. And
see, I didn't really like that part. Like I wish they would have kept it more in line with the first one, where they had this big report. So instead of like them going back in time, replacing all this stuff, maybe just having like this big concert at milepost 46 or whatever, and not having like the let's travel through time and give everybody instruments. That part was just weird. I didn't get that. But they had all these historical figures popping into where the concert was playing. So I wish they would have just shown like this is how they're uniting the world, is because all these different people are here at this one particular time and place.
And then when they like snap back, then it
goes back.
Gonna say for those people that haven't played a violin, a trumpet, a saxophone, a flute, it would not sound good when these people that had not played the instrument suddenly decided to play. I don't think you would have united the world. It wouldn't have sounded good at all. In fact, it would have been very poor. And where do they get all these instruments? Again, I know this is a slapstick movie, but I think I just, yeah.
Hey, if there's infinite Bill and Ted's, they have infinite access to music instruments.
Where?
That Guitar Center truck.
You didn't see the guitar center truck.
The one Guitar Center truck, and they had less than 4 minutes before they had to play, and
And this employee's like, throws the truck open. Instruments.
Yeah,
I
that
remember.
another
part.
convenient. We talk about convenient plot points. Somehow, a guitar center truck was just on Milepost 46.
You know why, Mattson? It is because Ted is a man of focus, commitment, sheer will.
Javier, I like that you cleaned that phrase up though. You left out a swear word for
did.
Nicole. Just want you to know that he was thinking of you.
It's been a pretty clean podcast, so I figured I would just continue that. But in all seriousness, if you want to watch a movie about perseverance, just go watch John Wick 1, 2, and 3.
Because JJ, that's my biggest. If we're docking movies, other movies, series movies about plot points, plot progression, stories that make sense, then this movie does not hold up. But if we're putting this in its own category because it's slapstick, because it's Bill and Ted and their mantra, like that can be fine with me. But that's where my mind is, where I'm comparing it to like all these others, and it's just not there in that regard.
Okay, so there's movies when you watch them, like a John Wick, that's set in the real world, meaning they try to make it realistic. And if you're going to commit to making it realistic, then I have to watch it from a realistic perspective. So therefore, I'm looking at that going, okay, so the man has a bag wrapped around his head when he should just be shot in the face. That's my problem. If you're going to leave it in a realistic world, you need to be realistic. Bill and Ted has never once ever committed to being in a realistic world. They have committed to time travel 100% from the beginning of this series. So when I look at that, my suspension of disbelief is gone because I don't have to. I know what I'm watching. So it's really about the movie. If the movie's going to try to be realistic, it needs to lean into that because I'm going to watch from that perspective.
So because of that, you're willing to be like, well, they made a Guitar Center truck show up, and that is believable, and we're just going to let that slide, that connected the plot point. To me, that's still, you're allowing too much professional liberty for something that they just made that appear.
I thought you were the one that gives the liberty to the movies. In our earlier podcast, that was always your comeback. It's like,
Well,
oh, well, I
that's
give
just what I
them.
say. That's my comeback. It's like, well, it's a movie. That's how they get away, and that's how they get away with it. But it was just so. It's like I got sucker punched in the face with that part. It's like happened to be right
For me,
there.
it's about this. When I look at this movie and there's time travel, we're stealing historical figures from the past and bringing them back to the future. We're talking about quantum mechanics from Kid Cudi, and the thing that we're hung up on is a Guitar Center truck that just happens to be stuck in traffic on this bridge.
Well, I'm just using. I mean, if you want me
But-
to go on all those, I would, but I'm just using that as my example.
And
But
I get that. But again, this is a movie that my suspension of disbelief is in full bore because I know what I'm getting into. There's nothing about this movie that's meant to be realistic. It's supposed to be funny and silly and still tell a story about caring about each other and bringing each other together. It's just like you talk about the fact that, yeah, the music probably sounds like shit, but my favorite part when we talk about bringing everybody together is in the credits. You're watching these credits and these people are just having fun jamming. Some of them are just air guitar jamming. Some of them actually have musical instruments. And the idea is that music can bring us together. And it does. I can't tell you so many things when you sit around and you have, I have a lot of musician friends I got a buddy, Lamar, who plays in like 8 different bands as a drummer, and he sings and and the tie that as a musician you have with other musicians, and then that people listen to music, and it is a powerful thing. And I think that's true of the arts in general, not just music. They just lean into the music part with this series of movies. And I think for me, that's what I really like, is at its core, this is a movie about 2 knuckleheads that bring the world together based on something that's very real, which is music, and focusing on the things that are important, like friendship and family. And whereas we get so caught up on ourselves, and we talked about in serious movies about how being able to forgive each other and apologize and be kind to each other is very difficult for us in this world these days. And if you can look at this silly ass movie that has plenty of flaws, but teaches a great lesson, in my opinion, because of the fact that it's about coming together, being kind, that there's nothing that we can't overcome as a society and as human beings if we just look at each other as people. And so that's why I love these movies, no matter how silly they are and goofy they are. To me, the message in all 3 of them is just pure, and it's beautiful, and it's just funny to me because there's a lot of good humor. But there's my serious note for why Bill and Ted to me is so impactful. As a kid, I was like, we used to say that to me and my friends: be kind to each other, be great, be excellent to each other. That's what it was. But yes, it's unrealistic and it's silly, and there's some really messy plot points that are very conveniently thrown together to bring it there. But I loved the ending. how everyone was going back into their place. The time-space continuum was fixed because, they brought together. I did have one major, like I seriously rewound it 3 times to make sure I wasn't losing it. But the ADR in this was just terrible at the end because Kid Cudi grabs the mic. They give him spotlight to say like something. What did he say? He yelled, "San Dimas, make some noise." The dude's mouth didn't even move. Like, and yet he says, so the ADR, the voiceover I was like, wow, that was terrible. And it was so visible to me that it bothered the living shit. I mean, at least I don't even care if the words match up. Oh, God, it was bad.
I will say the one complaint, I don't know if it's a complaint, criticism, feeling. I had the same feelings watching this as I did watching Scoob, in the sense where I think it's really cheap to make movies almost entirely based on nostalgia, right? Like if this movie was a standalone movie, everyone in their right mind would say this is a flop, this is a terrible movie. But because it has like a basis of like the original Bill and Ted and stuff, people will, give it some leeway and they'll go watch it and stuff. But I think if you're going to do that, like make a movie worth watching. I think riding on the coattails of another movie is kind of cheap to me, especially when it's a comedy movie.
I can see that.
Yeah, that's fair. I can get behind that criticism.
Also, as a water skier, I saw that twist coming from a mile away. Like, that is the most obvious twist. So the twist, very disappointing.
Yeah,
it's just not surprising.
My very first note in this movie, so from the very beginning, I wrote, it's a little smack you in the face that it was their daughters that was going to pull this off.
Absolutely.
Like, they were a little heavy-handed with that whole thing. Like, yeah, so that's true. Like, it was very predictable how that was going to go. I can't help but think that they meant for it to be that predictable so that you weren't trying to figure out what was going to happen. But I don't know. I do think they were very heavy-handed with that.
Yeah, because if I had to figure out what was happening, like I was completely lost in all the timelines because I didn't know what they were doing because they didn't write the song, so their future selves had failed, but then they did get to the song because they weren't different or counter to the reality that they were going to. Like I'm glad there was other stuff to keep my mind busy because I could not put all that together.
Not just that, there were 5 groups of people time traveling.
Yeah,
because you had Bill and Ted, you had their kids, you had their wives, you had the robot, and you had Kelly.
Yep, that's true.
There's a shit ton of people time traveling, and they never once paused to explain how this time traveling works. Like they don't even bother with the idea of like messing up timelines and stuff. Like they just do not care.
But that's the one thing I like. It held to the Bill and Ted brand because if they explain it to me, then instantly, and then I would pull back to what JJ said earlier. Like, well, they're trying to explain it, so then now I'm going to try and hold it to more of a realism in the fact that these plot points don't work, don't connect. There's a problem. So for me, they decided to say we're not going to do it, and therefore it's going to work because we never explained that it had to work. That's what I would say. Because if they did, I would have come down hard on them.
Yeah, actually, they do explain it a little bit. They make a passing comment in the little nursing home when old Bill and Ted explain that there are infinite paths and infinite futures. So it really doesn't matter what you do because there's just a lot of different options, right? And I think that's the only comment they make about time travel.
I did get a kick out of when their old wives steal the time booth from them.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 6 groups of people time traveling.
Yep.
But the old wives go and get the young wives. And so it's technically only 5.
And then Jack, Bill, and Ted's phone booth. I forgot about that.
My favorite line is kind of a throwback to the first one when they say, you killed Ted, you medieval dickweed. Yeah. They go in this one and it's, your you is a contentious dickweed. Good times.
Did you guys stick around? I'm sure you didn't. Did you guys watch all the credits?
The end credit? Yeah.
Yeah, the end credit.
Yeah.
Nope.
You missed out on old man Bill and Ted having a jam session. They're laying there. Are you dead yet? No. Are you? No. It's one thing I have to do first. And they get up and have this shred session on guitars. And then as they're done, they're like, oh, I'm tired. And they sit down on the amps and they're like, that was great. That was awesome.
JJ, you made it sound like it was a really, really good clip.
It was
impressive job. So Javier, you missed literally nothing.
You missed old man Bill and Ted freaking jamming on guitars.
No.
It was great. And it was a shred session where they're not actually playing, so it looked terrible, but it was funny as fuck. Their long ass old man hair flopping around.
Javier, I promise you, if there was an end credit in John Wick that you had missed, that you would need to see that, but not this.
Oh, it was great. We ready to
Can
rate?
we rate this thing
let's
already?
rate
Just be
this a piece
done.
of garbage.
Javier, you start us off.
Okay, so I'm gonna say overall, like it was a decently fun. I've been railing on it, but it was a decently fun movie. Right, like so long as you don't have high expectations, which if you're gonna go watch Bill and Ted, you should not have high expectations. So long as you have appropriate level expectations for Bill and Ted, it's a decently fine movie. It's not gonna surprise you with any twist. It's not. The humor's not going to knock it out of the park, but it is consistently average, good, bad. It's consistent, right? So I'm gonna give it a 1, and I'm gonna say I'm not gonna watch it again. But even with that 1, if you've seen the original Bill and Ted, you have the moral obligation to go watch this once.
Ian.
Okay, what to say about this movie? The nostalgia factor is high. Like Javier said, if you've seen the first one, it's worth watching this at least once. And I agree with that. I've watched it once, so I probably wouldn't watch it again unless somebody really, really, really wanted to watch it. I might watch it with them. But I enjoyed some of the humor. I thought some of the throwback lines were pretty funny. I enjoyed that they even did like kind of the go back in history and get a bunch of icons from different time periods. But overall, I'm going to give it a 2.
Mattson.
Yeah. If you can watch this movie with a friend like JJ or like my little brother, this movie's going to be a lot funnier. If you're someone like me that needs more to get you to laugh, and that's a knock on me, and movies are just better with people that like to laugh. So if you have that, this movie will be a lot more enjoyable for you when you stream it. I will go back to don't go see this movie in theaters. To me, this is not a theater movie. There's no epic visuals or anything in that regard. This movie's going to be fine in your TV, in my opinion. So for that matter, you got some fun friends that you want to go nostalgia and watch this. I think you're going to have a good time if you enjoyed previous Bill and Ted movies. That being said, if you haven't seen Bill and Ted, or you just like Keanu Reeves or the other main character actor that I can't think of, and you're just starving to watch a movie, there's other movies coming out like Tenet, Mulan, other movies that have come out like Unhinged that we rated that are going to be a much more exciting time. So with that being said, it's not a good movie. It's a 1. I'm definitely not ever seeing this movie again, clearly, unless maybe I come up and eat some delicious brisket that JJ makes and he gives me a hug. But beyond that, I'm not watching.
I'll always give you a hug, Matt. Look, we all know through this review, I enjoyed this movie, and again, the nostalgia is strong. It's a lot like Scoob for me. The difference is I found this Scoob was funny only and good because of the nostalgia. This movie, I think, at its core, has great themes and a great message. If you look past the silly slapstick comedy, if you haven't seen the original Bill and Ted's, then you're not going to understand what's going on in this movie because it is such an homage to those two movies. It ties in the best elements of both and then takes it a step further in a lot of cases with the trying to find themselves in the future. And so it does a lot of fun things that will bring you back to what the best parts of those first two movies. I do recommend seeing it. If you've seen those, you'll enjoy a lot of the parts of that. Is it a perfect movie? Not even remotely close. There's some really silly shit. There's some things that didn't land even for me. There was some obviously ADR problems with Kid Cudi. There were some issues that I had, but overall I just enjoyed this movie. It's like Javier said, it's consistent. It never tries to be anything more or less than what it is. I wouldn't go see it in theaters either. I'm glad that we didn't. I thought about it, but I decided since we were going to rent it, we might as well just rent it and I'll watch it at home. So I'm very glad that I did. It's not worth going and seeing in the theaters because there isn't anything that requires a movie theater. With my rating, I'm going to give it right down the middle and give it a 3. There are a lot of things that could have been better. There are a lot of things that could have been much worse, but I would definitely recommend at least going and seeing it once. I probably will watch this movie again because what I want to do is watch all 3 in a row. There's our ratings. We appreciate you tuning in. Next week, it's a big week next week.
Big week.
Tenet on Monday, Mulan on Tuesday. So check us out tomorrow. If you're listening today on Monday, tomorrow on Tuesday, myself, Ian, and Casey will talk about The New Mutants and the interesting movie that is. So check that out and look forward to next week with a couple of really big movies. With that, Mattson, why don't you tell them where they can find us?
Yeah, you can find us wherever good podcasts can be found. Your major places like Apple and iTunes. Find us on social media on the big three, and come check out our website, and also check out our YouTube channel. Excited to engage with you guys in all formats. Slide into our DMs. Let us know what you want us to talk about or movies you want us to review.
So great times. Go check us out. That's The Verdict. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye now.
Cinemagic out.